You've just stepped into a place where silence has weight, where every sound in the dark might be something more than the house settling. Tonight's theme is home. Not the kind filled with warmth and laughter, but the kind that keeps secrets. The kind where someone, or something, waits just beyond the locked door. These are 3 true home intrusion stories, nights when comfort turned into terror, and the walls that should have protected became cages. No monsters, no ghosts, just the sound of real footsteps, and the quiet breath of someone who isn't supposed to be there. And unlike other tales, these don't end when the police arrive, because once you've heard someone moving inside your home, you never truly sleep the same again. Most people listen to these stories, feel that chill down their spine, and forget to subscribe. But you're still here in the dark with me. Tell me, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious who's still awake. Now, lock your doors. Turn down the lights, let's begin. The second I heard the knock, I knew it wasn't the wind. It was too sharp, too human. 3 taps, evenly spaced, like whoever was out there wanted me to know they were real. I froze halfway through microwaving leftovers, my fingers still hovering over the button. The sound came again, louder this time. Knock, knock, knock. I glanced at the clock. 12:47 a.m. No one ever knocked at my door that late, not in this neighborhood. At first I thought it might be my upstairs neighbor, Craig, the guy who always locked himself out. But he usually texted me before bothering me this late. I checked my phone. Nothing, another knock. Slower now. Like whoever was out there was getting impatient. My apartment was small. 1 bedroom, 1 bath with a living room that faced a narrow porch. There were only 2 ways in, the front door and the sliding glass door that led to the tiny backyard. I lived alone, always had. I muted the TV. Silence. Then soft scraping, like nails dragging against wood. Every sound in that moment felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, the pop of the heating pipes. I could feel my own pulse pounding in my ears. I crept closer to the door and peered through the peephole. Nothing, just the dim yellow light from the hallway and the empty welcome mat I never bothered to replace. I held my breath, staring. Then the knock came again, this time from lower down, like whoever it was had crouched. The sound vibrated against the metal frame. My mouth went dry. I almost called out, "Who's there?" but stopped myself. My voice would tell them I was alone. Instead, I flicked on the porch light. It hummed weakly, illuminating the small patch outside the door. Cracked concrete, peeling paint. No one. I exhaled, shaky. Probably just kids, I whispered to myself, but I didn't believe it. I backed away from the door and checked the windows. Locked, curtains drawn. Still, that feeling, that static at the base of my neck wouldn't go away. I tried to distract myself, reheating my food, sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, but every few seconds my eyes drifted to the door again, waiting, listening. And then, right when I'd almost convinced myself it was over, knock, knock, knock. I jumped so hard I dropped my fork. The sound was louder now, deliberate, like they were testing me. My hand was shaking as I grabbed my phone. I texted Craig, "Me, you awake? Someone keeps knocking at my door." No response. I waited, stared at the screen. The microwave clock flicked to 1:03 a.m. Another knock. But this time, it came from the back of the apartment, the sliding glass door. I swear my whole body went cold. My kitchen faced that side. I had thin blinds, just enough to blur the outside view. Through them, I could see a faint shape, something tall, unmoving. For a few seconds, I couldn't even breathe. I wanted to call 911, but a stupid part of me thought, what if it's nothing? What if it's just a trick of the light? Then the shape moved, just slightly. A shift of weight, a step closer. I could see the faint outline of a head now. I didn't think. I bolted into my bedroom, locked the door, grabbed the baseball bat from under the bed. My hands were slick with sweat. The knock came again, this time softer, like fingertips tapping the glass. I stood there for what felt like forever. Every sound in the apartment magnified. The clock ticking, the fridge cycling on. The faint creak of floorboards that might have been mine or theirs. I finally dialed 911. The dispatcher's voice was calm, steady. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone outside my apartment, I whispered. They keep knocking. First at the front door, now at the back. Are you alone? Yes. Do you see them right now? I peeked out my bedroom door, staying low. From where I stood, I could just barely see the kitchen. The blinds fluttered slightly from the air vent, and behind them, nothing. The shape was gone. I don't see anyone now, I said. But they were just there. I swear they were. Officers are on their way. Stay inside. Lock your doors. Don't engage with anyone, understood? Yes. It took less than 6 minutes for the police to show up, but it felt like hours. I heard the knock again, this time from the front door, just as the patrol car pulled into the lot. I didn't even wait. I ran to the door and yanked it open as 2 officers came up the steps, flashlights drawn. They swept the porch, checked around the building. Nothing. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there. When one of them asked if I might have imagined it, I almost snapped. But then he saw something. Ma'am, he said quietly, pointing at the doorframe. There were marks, long thin scratches just beneath the peephole, like someone had dragged their fingernails down the wood. Fresh enough that tiny splinters stuck out. The other officer shone his light lower. And here, look, near the bottom corner of the door, there was a small wet spot and a single handprint. It was faint but clear, like someone had pressed their palm flat against the wood. The officer took notes, told me to keep the lights on, lock the doors, and call if anything else happened. They offered to do an extra drive-by that night. When they left, the silence hit harder than before. I sat on the couch, bat in hand, staring at the door until sunrise. Nothing else happened that night, but that was just the beginning. The next evening, I tried to pretend everything was fine. I told myself it was probably some drunk from the complex next door, someone who got the wrong apartment still. I couldn't shake the image of that handprint. Small, almost child-sized, around 10 p.m. I turned on every light in the apartment and double-checked every lock. Just before bed, I went to take out the trash. The dumpster was only 30 feet away, behind a small wooden fence. The night air was cool, the sky dark. As I dropped the bag in, I noticed something on the ground near the fence. A Polaroid. I picked it up. It was a photo of my front door, taken from outside. The light above the door was off, but I could see my own welcome mat, the number 12B just visible. Someone had taken it from only a few feet away. My stomach flipped. I scanned the lot, nothing but empty cars and shadows. I backed away, fast, dropped the photo on the counter, locked every door and window again. By midnight, my nerves were shot. I sat on the couch with the bat beside me and the TV on mute just to fill the silence. When the knock came this time, it was almost gentle. Knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm. Same timing. I stared at the door, heart pounding. Go away, I whispered. But whoever it was didn't leave. The knocking came again, slower, then from the back. Knock, knock, knock. Both doors at the same time. I froze. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone trying to dial 911 again. By the time the police arrived, whoever it was had vanished. Again. But this time, they found something new. A single Polaroid, taped to my door. This one showed me, sitting on my couch, bat in hand, staring straight ahead. Taken through the window. That's when I stopped sleeping. Even when the sun was up, I felt like the walls were watching me. I stopped going to work for a few days, called in sick. Every sound made me jump. The plumbing, the mail slot, even my phone vibrating. But the worst part wasn't the knocks. It was the silence that came after. The space between them, like whoever, or whatever it was waiting for me to make the next move. The knocks didn't stop that night. I didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear that soft, deliberate rhythm echoing in my skull, like my brain was replaying it over and over, making sure I'd never forget. By morning, I convinced myself it had to be some kind of prank. Maybe one of the neighborhood kids. Or maybe my brain was fried from stress, moving, unpacking, living alone for the first time. I told myself a lot of stories just to make it feel less personal. I called my mom. She said, "It's probably nothing, sweetheart. Country houses make sounds." Wood expands, pipes knock, but I knew pipes didn't knock 3 times and wait for you to answer. I made coffee and walked outside. To check the porch, the morning light was sharp and that kind of pale sunlight that makes everything look too clear, too detailed. The air was still wet from last night's rain, and the wood on the porch glistened, and then I saw them. Footprints bare. Uns. They were faint but visible on the damp boards from the stairs leading up to the door. Adult size, they stopped right where I had stood last night. My stomach went cold. I crouched down, staring at the shape of each toe, the arch. The prints were spaced too far apart to be a small person, and they were angled slightly inward, like whoever it was had stood there, waiting for me to open the door. I looked out toward the yard, the gravel driveway, the line of trees at the edge of the property. Nothing, no signs of someone hiding, no movement, just the sound of birds and the hum of morning air. That night, I decided to leave a light on in the living room, the one that spilled a little glow across the hallway toward my bedroom. I figured if someone tried again, I'd see their shadow. I even set my phone to record audio. Not that I knew what I'd do with proof. Maybe it was more about control, about convincing myself that I wasn't crazy. It was just after 2 a.m. when I heard it again. Knock. Knock, knock. I froze. This time it was quieter, like whoever it was didn't want to wake the neighbors if there were any. I looked at my phone screen, recording. I didn't move for almost 30 seconds, my ears straining to catch the smallest sound. Then another set of knocks came. Same rhythm. 3 times. And this time, closer, not from the door, from the side window. I turned my head slowly, heart pounding. The curtain was drawn halfway, the soft light from the living room reflecting faintly on the glass. I couldn't see anything beyond it, just my own reflection. Pale, wide-eyed. Then, tap, a single knock against the glass. My breath caught. I reached for my phone with shaking hands, but the motion made my elbow hit the nightstand. The sound, a dull thud, seemed to break the moment. Silence followed. No more knocking, just the low creak of the house settling and my pulse hammering in my ears. I waited there, staring at the window until I finally worked up the nerve to peek outside. I pulled the curtain back just enough to see the yard. Nothing. No movement. No shadows. But something caught my eye near the bottom edge of the window. A faint smudge, right where the glass met the frame. I leaned closer. It was another fingerprint. This one pressed so firmly into the glass that I could see the ridges of the skin. I took a step back and nearly tripped over the edge of the rug. I didn't call the police that night. I told myself they'd laugh. You heard knocking? You saw a smudge? It didn't feel like enough, so instead I went outside the next morning. This time I brought my phone to take photos. The grass was matted near the side of the house like someone had been crouching there. And there were faint impressions in the soil. Knees, maybe. It was the kind of thing that makes your blood run cold because it's too small to be dramatic. But too real to ignore. I went back inside, locked every door, checked every window, and even propped a broom handle against the front doorknob. Something my dad used to do when we camped in motels. It didn't matter. That night, the knocking came again, but this time it moved from the front door to the side window. Then to the back door, knock, knock, knock. Knock, 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 always 3, always slow. I whispered to myself, "Go away. Please go away," my voice cracked. I felt like a child again, whispering to the dark, hoping it would listen. Then, silence. And I heard something that made me freeze completely. Footsteps on the porch, moving from the front door to the edge. Slow, deliberate creaking on the boards. I sat there, holding my breath, as the sound shifted from the wood to the gravel. I could hear the crunch of it under each step, and then nothing. I waited almost an hour before moving. When I finally checked the recording the next morning, I listened to every minute of that night. I heard the knocks clear as day, the 3 slow hits, the footsteps. But there was something else right before the first knock. A voice, barely audible like a whisper through static. It said my name, just once. I didn't know anyone here. I'd moved in barely 2 weeks ago. I hadn't given my number, my address, my name to anyone besides the landlord. I played that clip over and over until I almost convinced myself it wasn't real. Maybe it was wind. Maybe I was hearing things, but that night the knocking didn't come, and that should have been a relief. Instead, it made me nervous. Because now, it felt like whoever, whatever, was out there, was waiting. I started noticing small things missing around the house. A mug I always left near the sink, gone. My car keys, moved to the floor near the back door. A framed photo of me and my mom, turned face down on the shelf. That last one hit me hard because I didn't touch it, and there was dust around it, like someone's finger had traced the edges before turning it over. I remember just standing there, staring at it, too afraid to pick it back up. By that point, I didn't even bother pretending it was nothing. Someone was coming into the house. I called the police that night. 2 officers came. They looked around, took my statement, checked the locks. One of them, a younger guy with tired eyes, said, "Ma'am, if someone was breaking in, they're not leaving much behind. No signs of forced entry." I told him about the footprints, the knocking, the recording. He wrote it all down, nodding politely, but I could see the look in his eyes, that quiet disbelief. Before leaving, he said, "Sometimes moving somewhere new can mess with your head. You hear things. You're not used to the quiet." The other officer gave a half smile and added, "If it happens again, call us right away." Then they left. And the house was quiet again, too quiet. At around 3:10 a.m., I woke up to a noise, not knocking this time, a creak, like someone walking inside. I sat up in bed, my body locked tight, eyes wide open. Then, from the hallway, another creak. I could hear slow, careful breathing. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. The breathing was soft at first, almost hesitant. Then it got louder, like whoever it was had stepped closer to my door. The light from the living room spilled just far enough for me to see the bottom crack under my bedroom door. A shadow moved across it. My throat tightened. My heart was beating so fast I thought it would give me away, and then a whisper. "Are you awake?" It came from right outside my door. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. The shadow didn't move. Seconds passed. Then, I heard a single knock, soft, gentle, on the bedroom door. Knock. My eyes filled with tears. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. Another knock. Knock. Then silence. The shadow faded step by step down the hallway. I didn't sleep again. When the sun came up, I checked every lock, every door, every window. Nothing was broken. Nothing stolen. But on the inside of the front door, carved faintly into the paint just above the handle, were 3 small words. "I saw you." I didn't go to work that day. Didn't eat. Didn't shower. Didn't even open the curtains. Every sound felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, the ticking clock, the whisper of air through the vents. It all sounded wrong, like the house was holding its breath with me. That message on the door, "I saw you," kept replaying in my head. The shape of each letter, the pressure in the paint, the uneven strokes. It wasn't written with a marker or knife. It was carved, scratched in with something small and sharp. I sat on the floor across from it for hours, just staring. The cops hadn't believed me before. I knew if I called again, they'd chalk it up to stress or paranoia. But something had changed. It wasn't just someone messing with me anymore. Whoever this was, they'd been inside, and that meant they'd seen me. By late afternoon, I decided I couldn't stay there that night. I started throwing clothes into a bag, jeans, shirts, my toothbrush. I was on autopilot. Every few seconds I'd look over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone standing there. When I went to grab my charger from the living room, I stopped dead in my tracks. The photo of me and my mom, the one that had been turned face down, that was now gone. Completely gone. In its place was a folded piece of paper. I didn't want to touch it, but I had to. The paper was yellowed, torn at the edges, like it had been sitting somewhere damp. There was only one line written on it in shaky handwriting. "Stop locking the windows." My knees gave out. I just sat there on the floor holding the note, my heartbeat loud in my ears. I checked every window in that house. Every single one was locked, or had been before. The one in the kitchen, the one above the sink, was open 2 inches, and the air coming through it smelled faintly like rain and cigarettes. That night, I stayed in my car. I parked at the edge of the gravel driveway, just far enough to see the front door through the trees. I kept the lights off and the engine quiet, gripping my phone like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. The plan was simple. If I saw anyone near the house, I'd call the police immediately. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. I tried to stay awake, but exhaustion hit me like a weight. My eyes started to blur. The forest outside became one endless shape of black. Then, knock, 3 short hits, but not on the house this time. It came from behind me. I turned slowly in my seat. The back window of the car was fogged from the inside. But right in the center, clear as day, were 3 fingerprints. And before I could even react, another knock hit the glass. Louder. I screamed and twisted the key, flooring the gas. The tires kicked gravel as I tore down the road, headlights slicing through the trees. I didn't look back once. I ended up at a diner 20 miles out, shaking so bad I could barely hold my coffee. The waitress must have thought I was drunk or high. I kept glancing at the door every few seconds, waiting to hear that sound again. There was an old man at the counter who finally looked over and said, "You from the old Miller place?" My stomach dropped. "What?" He nodded like it was nothing. "That little house near the woods? Belonged to the Millers before the sun disappeared." My throat felt dry. "Disappeared?" "Years ago," he said, stirring his coffee. "Kid went missing after his mother died. Some folks said he ran off. Others said he never left." He chuckled, but it wasn't a warm sound. "That house has bad bones. Don't know why anyone rents it." I didn't ask more. I couldn't, but that word, disappeared, kept looping in my mind all the way back to the motel I checked into at sunrise. I stayed there for 3 days. The first night, nothing happened. I slept with the TV on, sound low, blanket pulled up to my neck. The second night I started getting texts, unknown number, no profile picture, 2:13 a.m. You left the door open, 2:14 a.m. Percy, you shouldn't have left, 2:14 a.m. I can still see you. I blocked the number. My hands were shaking so hard I hit the wrong button twice before it went through. Then I threw my phone across the room and sat there, breathing hard. But when I finally picked it back up, there was a new photo waiting in my messages. It was my house, taken from the tree line. And through the living room window, faintly lit by the lamp I'd left on, was a silhouette, someone standing exactly where I used to sit. I called the police again. This time, they took it seriously. They sent 2 officers to the house and 1 to the motel. The older cop, same one from before, asked me to describe the texts. He nodded, silent, and wrote everything down. When the other team came back, they told me the front door was wide open, but the part that got me, the part that still makes me feel sick, was what they found in the living room. Not blood. Not a body, a sleeping bag, laid out behind the couch, and next to it, a pile of clothes, old food wrappers, and a single Polaroid photo. It was me, sleeping, taken through the bedroom window. I moved again. Immediately. Different town. New number. No social media. I rented an apartment this time. 4th floor, double locks, cameras in the hallway. For a few weeks, things were fine. I started eating again, going to work, trying to act normal. But fear has a way of sticking to you, like smoke in your clothes. Every night before bed, I'd stand at the door, just listening. Sometimes I'd hear the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Neighbors, I'd tell myself. Just neighbors. Then one night, around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Nice place. I dropped it immediately. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. Then a second message. You locked the windows this time. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. I changed the locks again, even taped the windows shut from the inside. But fear, real fear, isn't something you can fix with locks. It's something that lives in you. Every noise made me jump. Every shadow looked like someone standing there. Then, on the 4th night, I heard it. That same rhythm. Soft, slow, familiar. Knock, 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 not from the door, from the wall, the one that faced the hallway. I pressed my ear against it and heard breathing. Slow, patient, like whoever it was knew I was listening. And then a voice, low and whispering, came through the wall. "You moved." I screamed so loud the neighbors called security. They came running, knocked on my door, asked if I was okay. But when they opened the hallway wall, nothing. No one. Still, I packed up that night. No more houses. No more apartments. I left, and I've been moving ever since. But sometimes, when it's quiet, when I finally start to forget, I'll hear it again. 3 soft knocks, somewhere in the dark. Knock, 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 and I know it's only a matter of time before he finds me again. It's been 6 months since I ran. 6 months of borrowed rooms, fake names, cash-only motels. I don't stay anywhere longer than a week now. I've become invisible. Or at least, I was trying to, until 2 nights ago. It started again. The same sound that's haunted me for almost a year now. Knock, knock, knock. 3 soft hits against the thin motel door. I remember the smell of the room. Stale cigarettes, mold, and cheap disinfectant. The TV was flickering quietly in the background. Some late-night weather report I wasn't even listening to. When I heard that first knock, my entire body froze. I didn't even breathe. The air felt thick, like it had weight. The shadows in the corners of the room looked like they were moving, stretching. I whispered to myself, "It's not real. It's not real," but then, a second set of knocks, louder, and a voice let me in. Just 3 words, calm, low, patient. I stared at the door, waiting to see the handle turn. It didn't. Instead, another sound. Metal dragging softly against wood, like a nail tracing the doorframe. Then silence. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall until morning. When I finally opened the door at sunrise, the hallway was empty, but there was something lying on the carpet just outside my door, a Polaroid photo. It was taken from inside my motel room while I was sleeping. I don't remember packing. I just remembered driving hours, maybe days. The map on my phone was useless. I just kept going until the city lights disappeared, replaced by trees and fog and the empty hum of the road. I found a gas station in the middle of nowhere, the kind with a single pump and a buzzing neon sign that read, "Open 24 hours," even though no one should be awake at that hour. The clerk was an older woman, heavyset, wearing glasses that kept sliding down her nose. She looked at me with this quiet sort of concern. "Long night?" she asked. I nodded, too tired to explain. She poured me a cup of coffee and said, "You can't outrun it, you know." I looked up. "What?" She shrugged, eyes still on me. "Fear. Whatever's chasing you, it's already inside." I didn't ask how she knew. I didn't want to. When I turned to leave, she said one last thing. "Just don't open the door this time." I found another motel that night. Smaller. Dirtier. Out past the highway where nobody stops unless they have to. I didn't turn on the lights, just locked the door, pulled a chair against it, and sat with my back to the wall. I told myself I'd stay awake this time, that I'd be ready. But around 3 a.m., I must have drifted off, because the sound that woke me felt like it was already part of a dream. 3 knocks. Knock. 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 I opened my eyes. Heart slamming against my ribs, the door was still shut. The chair still in place, but the sound came again. This time, from the bathroom door. I hadn't even opened it since checking in. It was only a few steps away, just a thin, yellowed door with a broken handle. I whispered, "Please go away." The room felt colder now. My breath came out in little white clouds, and then, as if it heard me, the knocking stopped. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I saw something on the floor, the bottom edge of the bathroom door. It wasn't flush against the tile anymore. There was a gap, and from underneath I could see movement, like fingertips, pressing against the floor, slowly curling, scraping. I grabbed my keys, my bag, and ran out into the hallway barefoot. The air outside felt heavy, wet, like the whole world had stopped breathing. I banged on the manager's door, screaming for help. No answer. Every door in that hallway looked the same, faded brown, cracked numbers. But one of them, room 9, was wide open. The light inside flickered. I took a step closer, then another. My brain was screaming don't, but my feet kept moving. Inside, the room looked almost identical to mine. Same layout, same ugly wallpaper, same humming air conditioner, except this one wasn't empty. There were photos pinned to the walls, hundreds of them, every one of me, sleeping, eating, sitting in my car, different towns, different motels, different nights, and right in the center of it all, taped crookedly, was a photo from last night. Me sitting on the floor, back against the wall, eyes half closed. The caption under it read, "She's almost ready." I don't remember screaming, but my throat burned. I ran. Out the hallway, out the lobby, into the fog. The sky was pale gray, just before dawn. My car was parked under the flickering streetlight, door still open from earlier. When I reached it, there was something sitting on the hood, a small, black handheld recorder, the kind journalists use. It was still running, red light blinking. I pressed play, static. Then, a familiar voice. My own saying, "Please go away." Then another voice, low and distorted, overlapping mine. "I can't. You let me in." I don't remember driving after that. I think my brain just broke for a while. When I came back to myself, the sun was rising over a line of trees. I was on some forgotten road with no signs, no other cars. The knocking hadn't stopped. Only now, it wasn't coming from outside, it was from the trunk, soft. Deliberate, patient, 3 knocks. I pulled over, shaking so hard I could barely move. The morning air was still. The birds were silent. I walked to the back of the car and stared at it. I told myself, "Don't open it." Don't, but I did. Slowly the trunk creaked open and there was nothing inside. Just my bags, my jacket, and taped to the underside of the lid. Another Polaroid. Me, standing right there, looking into the trunk. The timestamp was from 10 seconds ago. I threw the camera, slammed the trunk shut and ran. I don't know how far I got before the sound followed me again. Knock, knock, knock from the trees this time, from everywhere. I stopped running eventually. You can only run for so long before you realize whatever's chasing you isn't behind you anymore. It's inside you, it knows your rhythm. It knows your fear, it waits for silence, and then reminds you it's still there. I don't stay in motels now, I sleep in my car. I park near lights. I keep moving. But last night, while I was recording this, trying to document everything, to prove I'm not insane, something happened. At 3:07 a.m., there was a sound, soft, familiar. 3 knocks. This time, not from outside, from behind my seat. I turned around. Slowly. The back seat was empty. Or maybe it wasn't. Because pressed against the inside of the window, faint and perfect in the condensation, was a single handprint, and now, as I'm speaking this, I can hear it again, somewhere close, rhythmic, careful, like it knows exactly when I stop breathing. Knock, knock, knock. I want to say it's a dream, that it's all in my head. But if you're hearing this, what if you ever hear 3 knocks that won't stop? Don't open the door, don't look outside, and whatever you do, don't answer when it says your name. The first time I heard the scratching, I thought it was just mice. It was past midnight, rain tapping softly against the windows, and the house was wrapped in that kind of quiet that makes your thoughts sound too loud. I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone when I heard it. Soft, deliberate scraping from beneath the floorboards. Not random, not like the scurrying of a rat. It had rhythm. Scratch, scratch, stop, scratch, scratch, stop. I muted my phone and just listened. The sound came from the corner of my room, right beneath my bed. I sat up slowly, trying to figure out if maybe I had imagined it. The rain outside grew heavier, and for a few seconds everything was drowned in the hiss of water. Then it came again, closer this time. I pressed my ear to the wooden floor, holding my breath. The sound was unmistakable. Something or someone was moving inside the crawl space under my house. The crawl space was small, just a few feet high, accessible from a hatch in the laundry room. I had only ever opened it once when I moved in last spring. It was dusty, lined with insulation and home to a few dead bugs and cobwebs. Nothing about it seemed large enough for a person to hide. But that night, lying on the floor in the dark, I could hear the weight of something heavier than any rodent shifting under there. Wood creaked softly. I whispered into the silence, "Hello?" The scratching stopped, then 3 knocks. Directly under me. I jerked back so fast I hit my head on the nightstand. The sound was too deliberate, too measured. Someone had answered me. For a long time I just sat there staring at the floor. Every rational thought I had screamed that it was impossible. Maybe it was plumbing. Maybe the pipes were old. Maybe I was just tired. But I couldn't shake that sound. 3 knocks. Like a reply. I ended up sleeping on the couch that night, TV on low, lights dim. But every time the show went quiet between scenes, I swore I could hear faint movements beneath the floor. The next morning, I called the landlord. He brushed it off, said it was probably raccoons, and promised to send someone eventually. That word, eventually, hung in my head the rest of the day. By evening, I decided I'd check it myself. I waited until sunset, grabbed a flashlight, and went into the laundry room. The air smelled faintly of dust and detergent. The small wooden hatch was in the corner, sealed with 2 rusted latches. My heart thumped as I knelt down, unscrewed the first latch, then the second. When I lifted the hatch, cold, stale air wafted out like a basement that hadn't been opened in years. I shined my flashlight inside. The beam cut through the dark, revealing fiberglass insulation, a few pipes, and wooden beams stretching into the shadows. Nothing moved. I was about to close it when the smell hit me, rotting, faint but sharp, like old meat or decay. I leaned in closer, gagging slightly. Jesus. That's when I noticed the insulation had been pushed aside near the far wall, exposing a section of dirt floor that looked disturbed, like someone had crawled through it recently. I froze. My light trembled, and then from the far darkness of the crawl space something shifted, a low, dragging sound. Slow, careful, coming closer. I slammed the hatch shut and backed away, my breath catching in my throat. The sound stopped the moment the hatch closed. I locked it again. Then I moved my washing machine over it. That night I didn't sleep at all. Every creak of the house felt like breathing from beneath me. The scratching came back the next night, except now it wasn't beneath my room. It was in the hallway. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the faint sound of wood bending, like pressure against the floorboards. Then came the slow scrape. Scratch, scratch, stop. It was moving, traveling along the floor under the hall toward the living room. I lay frozen, staring at my ceiling, trying not to breathe. The only light came from my phone charging on the nightstand, its glow faintly illuminating the room. Then came the knock. Not from under me this time. From inside the wall, 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate. I whispered, "What do you want?" before I even realized I had spoken. Nothing. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it toward the wall. Nothing there. Just the framed photos, the air vent, the quiet hum of the night. I opened my camera app and started recording. The light flickered once as I scanned the room. Then softly through the microphone, something whispered. Low. Close. From behind the wall. Don't close it again. I dropped the phone. When I replayed the video the next morning, the whisper was gone. Just static, white noise, and my own panicked breathing. That morning, I called the landlord again. This time, I told him something was living under my house. He promised to send an exterminator by afternoon. By 5 p.m., an older guy in a blue jumpsuit named Frank showed up. He looked tired, like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Raccoons?" he asked, setting down a toolbox. "Something like that," I said. He crawled under the hatch with a light and camera probe while I waited outside. 10 minutes passed, then 15. When he finally came out, his face was pale, eyes wide. "You got someone living under there," he muttered. "What?" He shook his head. "I saw blankets, old food cans, a little flashlight. Somebody's been crawling around in your crawl space." I felt my stomach drop. "Did you see them?" "No, but I heard them." He rubbed his arms like he was cold. "Couldn't get a good look. Space is too tight." "You should call the cops." He packed up fast and left without another word. I called 911. When the police arrived, they opened the hatch again and went in with flashlights. I stood outside trying to listen, every sound amplified by adrenaline. Then I heard one of them shout, "Jesus Christ!" They came out 5 minutes later with nothing. "Whoever it was, they're gone," one of the officers said. but we found signs someone's been living under there for a while. He handed me a plastic bag with a few items inside, a cheap flashlight, an empty water bottle, and an old photograph, faded, almost colorless. The picture showed a woman and a little boy standing in front of my house, but the photo was old, like decades old. Recognize them? The officer asked. I shook my head. Looks like maybe previous tenants or owners. We'll check records. After they left, I stood in my laundry room staring at the crawlspace hatch. I could feel the cold seeping from underneath. And for the first time, I realized something that made my blood run cold. That photograph had been taken from the crawlspace door, like whoever took it was inside, looking out. I didn't go back into that laundry room for 2 days. Every sound in the house started feeling personal, like it was directed at me. The faint creak of wood, the hum of the fridge, even the wind against the siding. I kept waiting for the knock to come again, but it didn't, not once. It was almost worse that way. I started sleeping in the living room, lights on, TV playing quietly just to drown out the silence. But silence always finds its way back in, doesn't it? The third night, I woke up around 3:17 a.m. No sound, just that thick, wrong quiet that presses on your eardrums. Then I noticed the smell again. Rot. Damp earth. Metallic, like rust or blood. It was coming from the hallway. I grabbed my phone flashlight and crept toward the smell. The air felt heavier with each step, colder. When I reached the laundry room door, I could see the faintest shimmer of movement in the crack beneath it. Something was shifting inside. My heart thudded so loud it felt like it was echoing off the walls. I pushed the door open slowly. The washing machine, still pushed over the hatch, was vibrating slightly, just enough to rattle the detergent bottle on top. Then it stopped. I took one step closer. The smell was unbearable now, thick and sour. My flashlight beam trembled over the machine and down to the floor, where I noticed something that hadn't been there before. A handprint. Not dust. Not dirt. A wet, grimy handprint smeared across the tile coming from under the washer, and next to it, scratched faintly into the tile itself, were 4 words. She won't let me leave. My mouth went dry. I didn't understand it. Was someone trying to warn me? Or was it a message for someone else? I backed out of the room slowly, my phone shaking in my hand. I called the police again. They came, searched, found nothing. They told me I might be dealing with a vagrant returning to a known hiding place. They promised to patrol the area. But that night I realized something that froze me to my core. That message, the one scratched into the tile, it looked fresh, like it had been written while I was in the house. The next day, I finally decided I couldn't stay there anymore. I packed a few bags and called my friend Tyler to help me move out. When he arrived that evening, I tried to act normal, but my nerves were shot. He asked, "Man, what's with you? You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't," I said. "There's someone living under my house." He laughed, but when I showed him the crawl space, his face went dead serious. We moved the washing machine aside. The smell hit him immediately. "Jesus," he coughed. I opened the hatch again, light trembling in my hand. The inside looked darker than before, like the shadows had deepened somehow. The disturbed insulation was still there, but the hole in the dirt floor looked larger. I couldn't tell if it was just my imagination. Tyler shined his flashlight into the hole. "Bro, what the hell is that?" At first I couldn't see. Then as I leaned closer, I saw a faint reflection like glass. A cracked mirror half buried in dirt. But what caught my breath wasn't the mirror itself. It was what was reflected in it. A woman's face. Behind us. I spun around, but no one was there. Just the dim laundry room light and Tyler's shaking hand holding the flashlight. "You saw that, right?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just stared down into the crawl space, his face pale. Then without a word, he dropped the flashlight and slammed the hatch shut. "Dude," he said, his voice shaking. "We're leaving." Right now, we didn't argue. We packed what we could and left within an hour. That night, I stayed at Tyler's apartment. I thought maybe I'd finally sleep, but around 2 a.m., I woke to a faint sound from the living room. Knocking. 3 slow knocks. I froze in bed, my pulse hammering in my throat. The sound came again, this time from under the couch. I grabbed my phone flashlight and pointed it toward the living room doorway. There was something written on the carpet in faint, "Muddy smears, she found you." I didn't move for almost a full minute. I just stared at the words "as she found you," smeared across Tyler's carpet. The room felt too still, too quiet, like the air was holding its breath. Then from under the couch, something shifted. A soft scrape, fabric dragging across wood. "Tyler," I whispered. He groaned, half asleep in the next room.
"What? There's
"Something in here." He sat up, rubbing his eyes, confused and irritated. "Man, you're still on that?" The couch lurched. It wasn't a small movement. It jolted forward like something heavy had pushed from underneath. The legs screeched against the floor. Tyler froze. I saw the exact second the color drained from his face. We both watched as a hand, small, pale covered in dirt, slid out from the shadow beneath the couch. It twitched once, then slowly curled its fingers against the floorboards, like it was feeling for something. Tyler stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a broom handle, and jabbed under the couch. Nothing. When we lifted it, there was no one there. Just a smear of mud where the hand had been. We tore the apartment apart, looking for any sign that someone had broken in. Windows were locked. Doors bolted. Nothing disturbed, but the smell was there again. That same rotting, wet earth smell. Tyler wanted to call the police, but what were we going to say? A ghost crawled out from under the furniture. It would sound insane. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, Tyler looked like he hadn't either. He poured coffee with trembling hands and said, "You need to deal with whatever that was before it follows you anywhere else." "Before it follows me?" I repeated. He nodded. "That thing's attached to you, man. It's not some squatter. You brought it here." I wanted to argue, but deep down I knew he was right. The crawl space, the whispers, the handprint, the writing. It wasn't just a person hiding. It was something that belonged down there. Something that didn't want to be left behind. That afternoon, I went back to the house one last time. Every instinct told me not to. But I had to see, had to end it. When I unlocked the front door, the air inside was heavy and cold and like stepping into a cellar. The smell hit me instantly. The lights didn't work. I grabbed a flashlight from my bag and walked straight to the laundry room. The hatch was still shut, but something was different. The washing machine had been moved, pushed aside, like someone had been inside again. My flashlight shook as I aimed it at the hatch. The wood was splintered. Deep gouges carved into it like fingernails or something sharper had tried clawing its way out. I swallowed hard. My whole body was trembling. I knelt down, hand hovering over the latch. "You're not real," I whispered. "You're not." Then softly from under the hatch, "Don't leave me again." It was a woman's voice this time. Quiet, tired, and heartbreakingly close. I froze. The sound of her breathing was right beneath me, slow and wet, like someone struggling through mud. My flashlight flickered. When the light came back, the hatch was open, even though I hadn't touched it. A cold draft swept up from the darkness. Inside, I could see the mirror again, now pulled halfway out of the dirt. The reflection wasn't showing me, though. It showed the hallway behind me, and standing there, reflected clear as day, was the woman. Long hair dripping, face gray and slack, eyes so black they didn't reflect light. I turned, but there was no one there. Only the faint dripping sound echoing through the empty house. I backed away, shaking, my breath fogging the air. When I looked back at the mirror, her face was gone. But in the dirt below it, words had appeared, traced by some invisible hand. "You were supposed to stay." I ran. I didn't stop running until I was halfway down the street. When I looked back, the lights in the house flickered once and then went dark again. That was 3 months ago. The house was condemned a week later after a gas leak fire. The crawl space was sealed. The ground collapsed inward. Nobody lives there now. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is silent, I still hear it. Scratch, scratch, stop. And I know, wherever she is, she's still trying to crawl her way back up. Because last night, as I was falling asleep, I heard it again. Not under the floor this time, under my bed. The night I took the babysitting job at apartment 3B, I told myself it was easy money. Just one evening, nice couple, sleeping kid, but the second the elevator doors opened onto that floor, I knew something was wrong. The hallway lights flickered in that sick yellow way that makes everything look water-stained. The air smelled faintly of dust and old carpet cleaner. Every sound, my shoes on the tile, the hum of the fluorescent bulbs, echoed too long, like the building was hollow inside. B was at the very end of the corridor. The brass numbers were half peeled off the door, one of them dangling by a nail. When I knocked, there was a pause before it opened. A woman in her late 30s stood there, smiling too quickly. "Hi, you must be Jenna," she said. "I'm so glad you could make it on such short notice." Her name was Rebecca, I remembered from the text. She wore a navy dress, hair perfectly done, perfume too strong, like someone who wanted to seem calm but was rushing inside. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of the apartment, neat, modern, but with that stale smell you get when windows never open. "Come in," she said. Inside it was smaller than I expected. One couch, a few framed photos, a tall floor lamp giving off soft yellow light. Her husband appeared from the hallway, buttoning his shirt cuff. "Evening," he said flatly. His name was Eric. His handshake was quick, cold. They gave me the usual rundown. Their daughter, Sophie, was already asleep. Room at the end of the hall. Emergency numbers on the fridge. They'd be back around midnight. "Feel free to watch TV," Rebecca said, grabbing her purse. "Just please don't open the balcony door, the lock sticks." I nodded. Easy enough. As they left, Eric paused with his hand on the doorknob and said, "She sleepwalks sometimes. If you hear footsteps, just gently lead her back to bed. Don't wake her." His tone was too careful, rehearsed. I forced a smile. "Got it." He gave a short nod, then the door closed behind them. Silence. The kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It just presses on your ears. I exhaled and dropped my bag on the couch. My phone had 1 bar of service. The Wi-Fi network, ER Family Bot, popped up but asked for a password. Great. For a while, I scrolled through downloaded videos and half-watched something on my phone. Every so often, I'd glance down the hallway, that narrow stretch of dark leading to Sophie's room. The nightlight in her doorway flickered faintly like it was struggling to stay on. Around 10:30, I got up to check on her. The hallway felt colder than the living room, though there was no vent. I moved quietly, my socks soundless on the wood floor. The air smelled faintly sweet like syrup, and something else under it, something metallic. I peeked into her room. Sophie was there, small and still, curled beneath a pink comforter. Her hair spread across the pillow like a halo. The nightlight buzzed softly in the socket. Everything looked fine. I turned to go, but something made me stop. The closet door. It was open a few inches. I could have sworn it had been shut when I came in. I hesitated, then gently pushed it closed. The latch clicked softly. Nothing strange. Just my nerves. I went back to the couch, grabbed a blanket, and sank into the cushions. Time dragged. At 11:07, I heard it, a soft click like a door latch. I sat up, heart pounding. Another click, and followed by the faintest creak like wood shifting. From down the hall, I turned off the TV so I could hear. The apartment was completely still again. I waited, barely breathing, then tap, tap, tap. 3 slow taps. Not on the door. Not from the hall. From inside, somewhere in the walls. I stood, straining to listen. The sound seemed to come from behind the kitchen, like from the other side of the drywall. I took a few cautious steps closer. My own reflection in the black oven glass startled me. I whispered, "Sophie?" But no answer. I leaned closer to the wall. Nothing. Then the sound came again, right beside my ear this time. Tap, tap. I jumped back so fast I nearly tripped. It stopped. The refrigerator motor kicked on behind me, making me flinch again. I laughed nervously under my breath, trying to calm down. "Old building," I muttered. "Pipes, that's all." I decided to check on Sophie again just to be sure. The hallway light flickered as I stepped in. The floor felt colder now, almost damp under my socks. I reached her door and froze. The closet was open again. Wide this time. Sophie still lay motionless in bed, breathing softly. I forced myself forward and shut the door again, firmer this time. My hand brushed something rough on the inside of the handle, like dried splinters or tape residue. As I turned away, I heard it. From inside the closet. Tap, tap. My blood turned to ice. I yanked the door open, heart slamming. Nothing, just hanging clothes, shoes, a toy box, but the air inside was colder, like a basement. I crouched down and saw a thin line where the carpet ended under the toy box. A square outline in the floorboards, a hatch. I swallowed hard, backed out, and closed the closet again. Nope, not my problem. I returned to the couch, turned the TV back on, louder this time, and stared at the clock. 11:23, 35 more minutes. When the phone buzzed suddenly, I jumped again. It was a message from Rebecca. Everything okay? I typed back, yeah, all good. Sophie's asleep. The reply came instantly. Don't go into the crawl space. I stared at the screen. My stomach dropped. Before I could type anything, another message came. We'll explain when we get home. I sat there, frozen, staring toward the dark hallway. How did she know I'd even seen it? The sound came again. Tap, tap, tap from the hall. This time it wasn't muffled through walls. It was clear. Wood against wood. I stood slowly, my whole body trembling. The tapping stopped. Then came a soft creak, the sound of a small footstep. I whispered, Sophie? But my voice cracked halfway. I grabbed my phone flashlight and pointed it down the hallway. The beam shook in my hand. Nothing. Just the narrow hall, pale wallpaper, the slightly open door to her room. I took a step forward. Then I saw movement, just a flicker, at the far end. Like someone ducking back into the doorway. Sophie? I said again, louder this time. No answer. I reached the room. The nightlight was still buzzing softly. The closet closed. The bed empty. My chest tightened. Sophie? I ran to the bed and yanked the covers back. Empty. My heart was hammering so hard I felt dizzy. I turned in circles, scanning every corner. No sign of her, then I noticed it. The closet door wasn't just closed. It was wedged shut, like something heavy was pressed against it from the inside. The faint sound came again. A small thud, then a tiny muffled cough. I lunged for the handle and pulled. It didn't budge. Sophie? I yanked harder until finally it gave way. The door flew open, banging against the wall. The closet was empty. The toy box was tipped over. The hatch in the floor was open. A square of blackness gaped beneath the carpet, cold air wafting up like from a cellar, and from that darkness in a whisper very faint. Very close. Shh. I stumbled back, slamming the closet shut and dragging a chair in front of it. My breathing was loud and ragged. What the hell was that? I grabbed my phone again. The messages were still there, and a new one blinked at the top. Did you open it? My throat went dry. I typed back with shaking hands, what's in there? No reply. I waited. The clock ticked to 11:41, then a minute later, if you did, don't make any noise. I froze. A faint sound came from the hall again. Not tapping this time. Breathing. Slow. Shallow. Right outside the bedroom door. I stood perfectly still. Flashlight off, holding my breath, the breathing stopped. Then, a small knock on the door frame. 3 slow taps. Tap. Tap. Tap, Sophie? I whispered. The door creaked open an inch, then another. Something pale peeked through the crack. A small hand. I exhaled, half relieved. Sweetie, you scared me. Then I saw it. The hand wasn't Sophie's. The fingers were longer, thinner, grayish under the light. Nails cracked. Skin damp like it had been in water too long. I stumbled backward as the door opened another inch. The smell hit me. Mold, earth, and something sweet and rotted. I grabbed the lamp and swung it toward the door. Nothing there, just the open hallway again. I wanted to scream. I wanted to leave. But my keys were on the kitchen counter. I bolted down the hall, grabbed them and turned toward the front door but stopped cold. Chain lock was on. I hadn't locked it. Someone had. That's when I heard the soft voice behind me. Don't let them in. I spun around. Sophie was standing by the couch, hair messy, eyes wide. Her pajamas were dirty like she'd been crawling somewhere. Sweetie, I whispered. Where were you? She just shook her head. They don't like the light. My heart pounded so hard I could barely think. Who? She pointed down the hall. The people in the crawl space. The rest of that night I couldn't shake the image of that door across the hall, apartment 3A. Every time I tried to close my eyes, I heard the faint click of that latch. or imagined someone standing behind it. Ear pressed to the wood, listening. When morning came, I went home and tried to laugh it off. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe the building's old pipes made weird noises. I told myself I'd never take a job from an online posting again. But by the third day, Mrs. Lang texted me again. "Hi, are you free this Friday night? Thomas keeps asking about you." Something about that made me hesitate. Thomas was sweet, but the thought of going back into that apartment made my stomach tighten. Still, I needed the money. Rent was due and my roommate had already covered me once, so I said yes. Friday night came with a drizzle that made everything slick and gray. The building looked even older in the rain. The paint on the railing bubbled and peeling, and the fluorescent light above the entrance flickered like it was dying. Inside, everything smelled faintly damp, like the carpet never quite dried after a flood. Mrs. Lang greeted me at the door, purse in hand, same floral scarf around her neck. "You're an angel," she said, smiling. "We shouldn't be too late tonight. Just the usual, dinner's on the stove, bedtime by 9. Thomas ran up, clutching a small plastic dinosaur, his eyes bright. "Guess what, Lila?" he said, grinning. "I found another one." "Another what?" I asked, crouching down. He pointed toward the hallway, toward the vent. "Another friend." Mrs. Lang's expression flickered just for a moment. "Thomas has a good imagination," she said quickly. "Don't let him bother you with his stories." She laughed a little too loud, kissed his forehead, and left. The door shut behind her with that same soft thud. And suddenly, it was just the two of us again. The evening started normal. Thomas ate his mac and cheese, we watched a cartoon, and he built a dinosaur city out of Legos. But I noticed something new this time. The air felt heavier. Not cold, just thick, like the apartment hadn't been opened in a long time. Every now and then, I thought I heard something, a soft scuffing behind the walls, almost like someone dragging fabric along the plaster. Thomas noticed too. At one point, he looked up from his toys and whispered, "He's back." I froze. "Who's back?" He pointed toward the hallway again. "The man in the crawl space." My skin prickled. I wanted to tell him that crawl spaces weren't in apartments like this. That was something from old houses, not city buildings. But the words caught in my throat, because I remembered something. When I'd been here last, I saw a hatch in the hallway ceiling. A square outline with a small metal ring in the middle. I hadn't thought much of it before, but now, "Thomas," I said quietly. "What, man?" He tilted his head, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The one who talks when it's quiet. I felt a cold pulse move through my chest. "What does he say?" Thomas shrugged. "He asks who's home. He says my name." After I put him to bed that night, I sat on the couch and listened. At first, it was just the rain, the hum of the fridge, the ticking of the old wall clock. Then around 9:40, I heard 3 slow knocks. They came from somewhere above me. Not the door. Not the wall. The ceiling. I looked up and realized the knocks were coming from the crawlspace hatch. My heart stopped. I sat there frozen, staring up at that square of darkness above the hallway. 3 knocks. Then silence. I told myself it was the building settling. Maybe someone upstairs dropped something, but the ceiling was flat. There was no apartment above, just the roof. I stood slowly, my heartbeat so loud I could hear it in my ears. The air was still. No sound. Then another noise. A whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it was soft, almost rhythmic, like someone murmuring just beyond the drywall. I stepped backward, toward the kitchen light. My hands were shaking. That's when I heard the thud. Something heavy had dropped directly onto the floor above me. I ran to Thomas's room, heart pounding. He was still asleep, curled under his blanket, clutching his dinosaur, but on the wall above his bed, right beside the vent, were fresh scratch marks. They were thin, jagged lines cutting into the paint, 4 of them, parallel, like fingernails. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in the living room until Mrs. Lang came home, trying not to look at the ceiling. When she walked in around midnight, she seemed startled to see me awake. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. Everything was fine, just couldn't sleep. She nodded slowly, then looked toward the hallway. For a split second, her face changed, like she noticed something that wasn't supposed to be there. "Did you?" Hear anything unusual? She asked. I hesitated. Just some noises. Maybe from the pipes? She gave me that tight smile again. The kind people use when they're trying to end a conversation. Old buildings, you know how it is. I nodded. She paid me, thanked me again, and shut the door behind me. As I stepped into the hallway, I glanced toward apartment 3A. The door was slightly open, not much. Just an inch or two, and inside it was dark, completely dark. I turned away quickly and left. Over the next week, I couldn't stop thinking about that place. The knocks, the voice, the scratches. I even looked up the building online, Oakwell Apartments. No reviews, no rental listings, nothing. It didn't even show up on Google Maps properly. Just a gray block with no label. Then one night, my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. Do you still babysit for the Langs? I frowned. I hadn't given my number to anyone but them. Who is this? I replied. No response. A few minutes later, another text popped up. You shouldn't have looked at the ceiling. My chest went cold. The number had no name, no profile picture, no call option. Just a blank contact. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, Mrs. Lang called me herself. Her voice was soft, a little shaky. Lila, I'm sorry for the short notice, but could you come tonight? I really need someone. I almost said no. I should have said no, but she sounded desperate. And honestly, I needed the cash, so I said I'd come. When I arrived that evening, something was different. The front door was slightly ajar. Inside, the lights were dimmer than usual, and the smell, something sour, like mildew and something metallic. Mrs. Lang wasn't there. Just Thomas, sitting on the couch staring at the blank TV screen. Hey, buddy, I said softly. Where's your mom? She had to go downstairs, he whispered, eyes not moving from the screen. Downstairs? You mean to the lobby? He shook his head. No, down. Before I could ask what that meant, he looked up at me and said, he doesn't like when she's gone. The back of my neck went cold. Who doesn't? Thomas blinked. The man in the ceiling. That night, everything changed. By 9 p.m., the knock started again, steady, deliberate. 3. Pause. 3 more. This time, it wasn't just above the hallway. It was above every room, moving, following. I grabbed my phone and texted Mrs. Lang. Where are you? Please call me. No reply. Then I heard a click. The ceiling hatch in the hallway, the one I'd been staring at for nights, was now hanging open. A black rectangle gaped down at me. Nothing visible inside but thick, unmoving darkness. The smell hit next like rot. I backed away, whispering, Thomas, come here now. He didn't answer. When I turned, he wasn't on the couch anymore. I found him standing in the hallway, right beneath the open hatch. Thomas, I hissed, rushing to grab him. Step back, he pointed up. He said you should look now. Then, before I could move, something fell out of the hatch, not a person, just a small object, clattering onto the floor. It rolled to my feet. A phone. My phone. The one I'd lost weeks ago. My heart stopped, because the last photo on that phone, the one I'd taken the night I lost it, had been of the living room in apartment 3B. Someone had taken it from me, and they'd been inside this apartment long before I ever noticed. The phone landed right at my feet. My missing phone. I remember staring down at it, unable to move. It was scratched, covered in dust, the case cracked across one corner, but it was mine. The same case, the same photo of me and my roommate taped to the back, and the last picture I'd taken on it was of the Lang's living room, a photo I didn't remember taking. For a long time, I just stood there, the silence pressing in on me, the open hatch above like a mouth in the ceiling, dark and waiting. Thomas was still looking up at it, his small shoulders trembling. See, he whispered. He told you he had it. I dropped to my knees and grabbed his hand. Thomas, we need to go. He didn't move. He said we can't leave until we listen. I pulled harder, trying to sound calm even though my pulse was hammering. We're going downstairs, okay? Just to wait for your mom. But then from somewhere above us came a sound that froze me to the floor. A voice, not loud, not clear, but human. It wasn't words at first, just a low, dragging hum, like someone murmuring through layers of dust and wood. Then it shifted, clearer, closer. "Don't go." The voice was dry, broken, like a throat that hadn't seen water in days. Thomas looked up at me, his lips trembling. He doesn't like it when you talk over him. That was it. I grabbed him hard this time, scooping him up even as he struggled. "We're leaving, now." The hallway stretched too long. Every light seemed dimmer than before. The air was thick, wet with that smell, something like mold, and something else under it. When I reached the door, I yanked at the knob, locked, not bolted, locked from the outside. I twisted harder, even tried the deadbolt, but it didn't budge. Someone had locked us in. "Thomas," I said, trying to stay calm. "Where's your mom's spare key?" He shook his head. "She keeps it downstairs." "Downstairs where?" "In the box." "What box?" He pointed toward the back hallway, past the kitchen. "That's where she said to go if he gets mad." That sentence made every hair on my arms rise. I didn't want to go deeper into the apartment, but there was nowhere else to go. I held him close, moving quietly down the narrow hallway. The air got colder the farther we went, the smell sharper. We passed the bathroom, the little laundry room, until I saw it. A metal door in the far wall, low to the floor, about the size of a furnace panel, and beside it faint scuff marks like it had been opened recently. "Thomas," I whispered. "What's in there?" He didn't answer. He just pressed his ear to the door. After a few seconds, he said, "He's sleeping again." I knelt beside him, my heart pounding so hard I felt dizzy. "Thomas, there's nobody sleeping down there. It's just pipes, okay?" Just before I could finish, there was a thud from the other side, then a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor below. Thomas backed away and hid behind my leg. I stood there frozen, watching as the latch on that metal door started to twitch, once, twice. Then, click, it unlocked itself. The panel creaked open. Darkness, a narrow space beneath the floor, low and deep, full of the smell of damp earth and old dust. I could barely see the shape of pipes and beams, but there was movement. Something shifted in the far corner, something crawling. It moved with a strange, uneven rhythm, like someone trying to drag themselves forward using just their elbows, and then, for a split second, I saw it, a pale hand, fingers bent wrong, skin gray, nails dark and chipped. The hand gripped the edge of the crawl space and froze there like it was testing the air. I screamed, grabbed Thomas and ran for the kitchen. I tried the back window, stuck. The frame was painted shut. I shoved at it with all my strength, but it wouldn't move. Behind me, something thudded again. The sound of weight shifting against wood, then the voice, closer now, hoarse and almost childlike. "Don't take him." I turned, backing against the counter, holding Thomas tight. He was shaking so hard I could feel it through my chest. "What is that?" I whispered. "Thomas, what is that?" He buried his face in my shoulder. He said he used to live here before us. Mom said we shouldn't make him angry. I stared at him, not sure if he was dreaming or remembering something real. "What do you mean, before you?" "He was in the walls." That's what she said. I looked toward the crawlspace door again, still open, black inside. For a long moment, nothing moved. No sound then, another noise. A skittering, faster this time. I could hear it moving beneath the floor, toward us. The vibration made the dishes in the cupboard tremble. And then, from inside the wall by the fridge, came a thump. A long crack split through the paint like something had slammed into it from behind. I backed away, pulling Thomas toward the front again. We passed the hallway and I saw the ceiling hatch, still open. Only now. Something hung down from it, a string. No, something thicker. A strip of cloth, old and dark, slowly swaying in the air like it had been tied there from inside. And at the end of it, dangling halfway down, was a small brass key. Every part of me screamed not to go near it, but I didn't have a choice. I set Thomas down and said, "Stay right here." He grabbed my sleeve. "Don't touch it. That's his. Thomas, it's the only way out." He started crying, small silent tears running down his cheeks. I reached up, my fingers brushing the cold metal. The key came free easily, and the second I touched it, something above me shifted. A low scraping sound came from inside the ceiling, directly over my head. Then, faint breathing. I didn't look up. I didn't want to. I Just grabbed Thomas and ran to the front door. The key slid into the lock perfectly. Turned it, and the door opened. The hallway outside looked empty. The flickering light was still there, casting everything in a weak, sickly glow, but the air, it felt colder, heavier, like the whole building was holding its breath. "Come on," I whispered, pulling Thomas out. The second we stepped into the hallway, the apartment door behind us slammed shut. I jumped, then slowly, it creaked open again. No one there, just the blackness inside apartment 3B. And in that darkness, I swear I saw movement, a shape not standing, not crawling but hanging, its head tilted at an impossible angle, face hidden in shadow. Then, gone. I grabbed Thomas's hand and ran down the hall toward the elevator. It was old, the kind that rattled and groaned when you pressed the button. I jabbed it again and again, whispering, "Oh, come on, come on." Finally, the doors slid open. We stepped inside, and as they closed, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Apartment 3A's door was wide open now. Inside, only darkness. And a faint, rhythmic tapping like nails against tile. The elevator ride down felt endless. Every floor creaked and shuddered like the cables were about to snap. Thomas clung to me, his breath warm and fast against my neck. Halfway down, the elevator jerked to a stop. The lights flickered once, twice, and went out. Total darkness. I could hear the cables whining above us, and underneath that something else, a scratching from inside the elevator shaft. It started above us, then slowly began to move down the side, closer, until it sounded like something was dragging nails along the metal just inches away. I tried pressing buttons, all of them, but nothing worked. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then, bang. Something hit the roof of the elevator so hard the ceiling panel shook. Thomas screamed. I wrapped my arms around him, whispering, it's okay, though I didn't believe it for a second. Another bang, louder. Dust rained down from the panel seams, then a slow, metallic creak, like the ceiling panel was being lifted. A thin beam of light cut through the darkness above, and a hand appeared. Small, bony fingers curling around the edge, gripping the metal. They were pale and dirty, with long, dark nails. Then another hand, and slowly, a face. It wasn't a face I could describe easily. Too thin, too stretched. Like someone had been starved for years and then pressed through a small space until their bones rearranged to fit. The eyes were wrong. Black around the rims, the whites yellowed, staring right at me through the crack. The mouth moved, dry lips splitting open. A voice like dust and air whispered down, "Why did you open the door?" I hit the emergency button over and over, screaming, "Help! Somebody help!" The face tilted. The thing blinked slow, almost curious. Then it smiled, not like a person. Too wide, too flat, and it whispered, "She said you'd come back." The elevator jolted. The lights came back on. The face was gone. The doors opened, lobby level. I didn't wait to think. I ran out, dragging Thomas with me, through the lobby doors and into the rain. We didn't stop running until we were 2 blocks away. I ducked into a corner store, shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone. I called 911. The dispatcher kept asking me to slow down, to explain. I told them there was someone living in the crawl space of apartment 3B, that there was a kid, that someone was inside the ceiling. They sent a patrol car. 2 officers showed up about 20 minutes later. They took my statement, asked about the landlord, the layout, the crawl space, then they went to check. I waited with Thomas in the cruiser, wrapped in a blanket the store clerk had given us. An hour passed, then another. Finally, one of the officers came back out. His face looked pale. "There's nothing up there," he said quietly. "No crawl space access, no panels, nothing. Just insulation and beams. We checked every inch." I shook my head. "That's impossible. It was open, I saw it open." He glanced at his partner. "We also didn't find any Mrs. Lang in the building records. No one's lived in 3B for over a year." My stomach dropped. "That's not true. I was there last night. She hired me, she paid me." He frowned. "You sure you have the right address?" I turned to point at the building. The windows were all dark, but one of them, 3rd floor, far left, I stared at that text for almost a full minute before I even realized I'd stopped breathing. You left the door open. No number. No contact photo. Just those 5 words, and a photo of my living room. It wasn't old either. I could tell. The angle was from across the room near the hallway door, the one I always locked at night. There was my couch, the coffee mug I'd left on the table that morning. Even the faint reflection of my lamp on the TV screen. But what made my stomach drop wasn't any of that. It was what was barely visible. In the top corner of the photo, the ceiling, hatch, the same kind that had been in apartment 3B, and I hadn't noticed it before. I remember backing away from the phone, like distance could make the photo untrue, but it didn't. It just sat there on the screen, proof that someone had been in my home or was still here. I checked the door first. Deadbolt chain secure, then the windows locked. The only place I hadn't looked was up. I stood under the hatch and stared. Just a faint square in the ceiling blending into the white paint. A small metal ring in the center. It had to be some maintenance access point for wiring or pipes. Every old apartment had one, right? Still, I couldn't stop staring at it. The air right beneath it felt colder. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I convinced myself it had to be a prank. Someone found my old posts online, maybe tracked me down, sent that text to scare me. I even called my landlord to ask about the ceiling panel. He sounded annoyed. "Yeah, those are all sealed shut," he said. "No one's supposed to open them. Don't worry about it, that was supposed to help." It didn't, because later that day when I came home from work, the hatch was open. Not wide, just enough to notice. A thin line of darkness where white ceiling should have been. I stood in the doorway. Grocery bag still in my arms, my breath stuck in my throat. The apartment was quiet. No lights on except the one in the kitchen, and then something fell, a soft clink, like metal hitting wood. It came from the living room. I set the bags down slowly and took a few steps forward. Lying in the middle of the floor was a brass key, exactly like the one that had fallen from the ceiling in apartment 3B. I didn't touch it. I didn't even want to look at it. I just grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and called 911. The dispatcher kept asking me questions I couldn't answer. Who's inside? How did they get in? Can you see them? But I didn't know. I just kept saying, "Please send someone. Please hurry." They said an officer was on the way, so I stood there, watching that hatch, listening. For a long time there was nothing, just my own breathing. Then faintly, like a whisper coming through drywall, a voice, soft, familiar. "Don't leave again." It wasn't the same tone as before, not that dry, broken rasp. This one sounded almost pleading, a child's voice. When the police arrived, the hatch was closed again. They checked the whole place top to bottom. Found nothing. One of them even stood on a chair, shining a flashlight at the ceiling. "Sealed tight," he said. "You're fine." "Ma'am?" I wanted to believe him, I really did. But later that night, lying in bed, I woke up to the sound of breathing, not mine. It came from above me. Slow, steady, like someone sleeping right over my head. I didn't move. Didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. And then, a faint creak right in the ceiling, like someone shifting their weight. The next day I called off work. I couldn't stay there. I packed a small bag and went to stay with my roommate from last year, Hannah. She listened to everything, the texts, the apartment, the crawl space, the Langs. When I finished, she said quietly, "Lila, maybe it's trauma. You went through something terrible and your brain's replaying it." I wanted to believe that too, but then I showed her the text, and she went pale. "Wait," she said, zooming in on the photo. This isn't your apartment." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She pointed to the corner of the picture. "You don't have molding along your ceiling like that." I looked closer. She was right. The photo wasn't of my place, it was of apartment 3B. I dropped the phone, hit the floor with a dull thud. I hadn't been back there since that night. The idea that someone or something was still inside that apartment, taking photos, pretending it was mine. It made my chest tighten until I couldn't breathe. But something else started gnawing at me too. If no one was renting that unit, if the Langs never existed, then who hired me? And who was the boy I took care of? I went back to Oakwell Apartments the next day. I told myself I was just going to see the outside. Maybe take a picture to show the police, but when I got there, the building looked different. The windows were boarded on one side. The for rent sign was gone, and the front door was chained shut. A city notice was taped to the glass. Property condemned, structural hazard, entry prohibited. A date was stamped at the bottom. 6 months ago. That was before I ever worked there. I stood there for a long time, rain dripping down my face, trying to make sense of it. If the building had been condemned, then there was no way I had been inside it recently. No Mrs. Lang, no Thomas, nothing. Just an empty building, rotting in the dark. I turned to leave and froze, because through one of the cracked boards covering a window, I saw a light, a soft flickering glow like a lamp left on. 3rd floor, far left, apartment 3B. I don't remember deciding to go inside. I just knew I had to. I found a broken side door half hidden by overgrown weeds. It was locked with a thin chain easy enough to pull loose. The air inside hit me like a wave, thick with mold, dust, and something else. Underneath, the hallway was silent except for the sound of dripping water somewhere deep in the pipes. My footsteps echoed as I climbed the stairs. Every step groaned. Every turn of the railing left flakes of paint on my hands. When I reached the 3rd floor, I stopped. Apartment 3B's door was wide open. Inside, that same faint yellow glow. The apartment looked the same wallpaper, same layout, but everything was decayed. The floor warped, the ceiling stained with dark patches, the air cold enough that I could see my breath. The furniture was still there. The couch, the little table, even the toys scattered on the floor, but all of it was gray with dust, untouched for years. I took a few steps forward, the floor creaking under my weight. "Hello?" I called out softly. Nothing. Then, a small sound. A faint tapping from the hallway. 3 slow knocks, from above. My chest tightened. I looked up, the ceiling hatch, wide open I could see. Into it this time, the hollow black void stretching deep into the beams. Something hung from the edge. A strip of fabric, and tied to the end, a small plastic dinosaur, Thomas's toy. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely hold my phone. I turned on the flashlight and aimed it up. For a second, I saw nothing but insulation and dust. Then something moved. A shape shifted just beyond the light's reach, pale and human-shaped, folded wrong to fit in that narrow space, and 2 eyes reflected the light back at me. Not glowing, just wet. Watching. The voice came again, right above me. "You left me here." I stumbled back, almost tripping over the couch.
Who are you?
The voice grew sharper. "Where's my mom?" My breath caught. "Thomas?" I whispered. The sound stopped. Silence. Then, a whisper so faint I barely heard it. "She said I could stay here." The temperature dropped. My flashlight flickered. Something crawled forward in the darkness. Faster this time and scraping against the wood. I bolted for the door. It slammed shut before I reached it. The whole apartment shuddered, dust falling from the ceiling. I ran to the window, trying to break it open, but the glass didn't even crack. Behind me, the voice was closer. "Don't leave. You said you'd come back." I turned around slowly, and there he was. Thomas, or something that used to be him. He was standing just a few feet away, his clothes gray with dust, eyes hollow and too dark. His skin looked thin, stretched tight around his jaw, and when he smiled, it didn't look human anymore. "I waited," he said quietly. "She told me to wait for you." "Where's your mother?" I whispered. He blinked. "She's still here." Then, without looking, he pointed upward, to the ceiling. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I needed to see. I shined the flashlight up again, and there she was, Mrs. Lang, or what was left of her. Her face was pale and slack, eyes open but empty, hair hanging down through the hatch. Her neck bent at a sharp angle, her mouth frozen mid-scream. The ceiling beam above her had a thick rope tied around it. I stumbled backward, choking on the air. Thomas's voice came again, softer now, almost sad. "She said we could stay forever. She said someone would take care of me." He took a step closer. "She said you were nice. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I can't stay here. He tilted his head. Yes, you can. The walls started to creak. The light flickered again, the air felt heavy, too heavy to breathe, and then the knocks came back. 3 from the ceiling, 3 from the floor, 3 from behind the walls, all at once. It was like the whole apartment was closing in, alive, pulsing. I grabbed the door handle, twisting, pulling, and suddenly, it opened. I ran. Down the stairs, out the door, into the rain, gasping for air like I'd been drowning. I didn't look back. That was 2 years ago. I moved across the country, changed my number, stopped babysitting altogether. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see that apartment, the pale hand on the edge of the hatch, the voice whispering my name, but the worst part is, it's not over.